New questions today on what's being described as a last-ditch effort to overturn Donald Trump's election victory. Are Democrats attempting an electoral coup? A very serious question as we start this Wednesday morning. Hope you're well at home. I'm Bill Hemmer. Welcome here to America's Newsroom. Nice to be back with you.
Good to have you back.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum. So we're going to have much more on that in just a moment. But first, President-elect Donald Trump took the big thank you tour to Wisconsin last night. Two well-known locals. There's Paul Ryan and Governor Scott Walker. Reince Priebus was there as well. Mike Pence, as you can see on the stage. Lots of Wisconsin guys and one from Indiana in the vice president. So Mr. Trump singing the praises of his pick for Secretary of State. There's some indications there's going to be some pushback here. So he really spoke very favorably of ExxonMobil CEO Rex Tillerson.
Rex will be a fierce advocate for America's interests around the world and has the insights and talents necessary to help reverse years of foreign policy blunders and disasters. You're winning with health care. We're winning on the border. We're winning with ISIS because we are going to get ISIS out. We're going to win so much. You're going to go to Paul Ryan. You're going to go, Mr. Speaker, please, please. We can't stand winning this much. We can't take it. And he's going to come to see me and he's going to, Mr. President, the people in Wisconsin are tired of winning so much.
More on that today now. I want to start now with Team Fox coverage. David Lee Miller at the Trump Tower here in New York, but want to begin with Fox News digital policy editor Chris Starwalt in D.C. Reverend, good day to you. Okay, now right this girl. So what's the process with the electoral vote that will be in question now by some?
Well, Democrats want, some Democrats want for the members of the Electoral College who are asking for it to receive a confidential briefing or see confidential materials related to the evidence of Russia's involvement in hacking Democratic emails to help influence the election or undermine the U.S. election. This is obviously a bid for coup is probably too strong a word, but to subvert the election. Some have even called for a revote. This is a reflection of how hard the Democrats are taking it, how bad it is for them, and the fact that Hillary Clinton's former campaign chairman, John Podesta, supports this movement, says that it's more than just fringe weirdos.
Well, the irony is rich with that. In a moment, I'll get back to Podesta, but history says it doesn't matter much, right?
Nah. Look, Donald Trump won 306 electoral votes. You need 270 to win. Is it conceivably possible that 37 electors would be what we call faithless? It has happened in the past that one or two here or there have been faithless in protest, not voting the way that the voters of their state have ordained. This is, remember, a federal republic, not a direct democracy, so they have agency. Now they face consequences at home. Every state has a different law about what the penalty for an elector who doesn't follow the state laws are. But let's say you get many, brag and say there may be as many as 20 that would be faithless. But let's say that you got it all the way up to the 37 that you'd need to push Trump under 270. Then the election goes to the House and Trump wins it there anyway. So this is all cockamamie.
Wall Street Journal writes this, okay? What should really distress Americans is that the losers are trying to overturn the election results based on little more than anonymous leaks and innuendo. Whatever Russia's hacking motives, there is no evidence that the emails it turned up were decisive to the election result, end quote.
And doing so undermines confidence in institutions. Undermining the confidence in institutions further enhances the Russians' efforts here. This is doing what your enemy wants you to do, is to undercut the legitimacy of elections, to undercut these things. Voters knew or had the opportunity to know about the fact that Russia was meddling in this election. Fake news had been discussed. These propaganda stories that people from Russian-affiliated sites were pushing out. We knew about Russia hacking. We knew about WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. All of this was discussed in the election. The fact that voters didn't care as much as Democrats wanted them to is something that is bad for Democrats, but not cause to undermine the institutions that are integral to keeping this republic afloat.
Here's the irony. I mean, if Russia did try and influence it, it was Podesta who gave up his password. There was a phishing expedition, and his team responded to it. Remember this from a month ago. This is a legitimate email. This is the email to John Podesta when he inquired about this email about a password change. John needs to change his password immediately. Now they're saying it's a typo. Well, that is one whopper of a typo, Chris.
It is a typo. It is a typo that may have cost them, we don't know how many votes, but it sure cost them some votes, because by saying legitimate instead of illegitimate, because obviously that was his sentiment. You got to change your password. When he said legitimate instead of illegitimate, there went Podesta, click, and let the Russians right through the front door, and they harvested all that email out of there and then tortured Hillary Clinton with them for the rest of the campaign.
Spell check is the advice of the day. Thank you, Chris. Nice to see you, sir, in Washington.
You bet.
Chris Stirewalt. Thanks.
So now let's get the latest live from Trump Tower this morning, where the president-elect has a very busy day ahead, including a meeting with some of Silicon Valley's top executives. David Lee Miller is live outside Trump Tower with more for us this morning. So good morning to you, David Lee. Who do they expect over there today?
Oh, a long list of special guests, Martha. In fact, you might best be calling Trump Tower Silicon Valley North. A number of titans of tech will be arriving here in the next few hours. The invitees include reps from Apple, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and IBM. The priority item on the agenda is expected to be jobs and the special visas issued by the government that allow many foreign tech workers to hold positions here. The president-elect's chief strategist, Steve Bannon, in the past has expressed concern that there were too many Silicon Valley CEOs who hailed from South Asia or Asia. At least one company, though, is going to be bringing some welcome news. IBM has announced that it plans to hire 25,000 tech professionals in the U.S. One tech titan conspicuously absent from the invitee list, though, arguably the president-elect's favorite tech company, Twitter. They are not expected to be represented here today. In other news, it is now official. Mr. Trump is going to nominate Rick Perry as the Energy Secretary. In an announcement just a few hours ago this morning, the transition team said the former Texas governor helped his state prosper by developing energy programs as well as infrastructure. And Fox News has learned now that Mr. Trump plans to nominate Montana Republican Congressman Ryan Zinke as Secretary of the Interior. Zinke is a former Navy SEAL. He met with Mr. Trump earlier this week on Monday. The president-elect, though, still apparently looking for his agriculture secretary nominee. There's growing speculation Mr. Trump is eyeing the North Dakota Democratic Senator Heidi Heitkamp for that job. If offered, Heitkamp, however, might turn it down because then a special election would have to be held to replace her, and it is likely to favor a Republican. And lastly, still no word on Mr. Trump's choice for Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Veterans groups are calling for Mr. Trump to keep Robert McDonald in that position. He has had that job now for about 2 years, and many veterans groups say that McDonald, a Republican, has implemented the types of reforms they would like to see, and hope that he continues to hold that position. Martha?
Right. We will see. David Lee, thank you. So Mr. Trump's pick for Secretary of State Rex Tillerson faces a rough road to confirmation, mostly because of his ties to Russia. So is it an advantage or a disadvantage for him? This will likely be the first face-off between the Trump White House and Senate Republicans who are opposed to this. So how is this going to go down? A packed show ahead today, beginning with Senator from Tennessee, Bob Corker, who was also up for that job, one of the people under consideration. He is the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and they're the people who will hold Tillerson's confirmation hearing. He will be here in just a few minutes, so we look forward to that. Also, we'll get his thoughts from, from Trump transition team spokesman Jason Miller, who will be here as they work on convincing those skeptical Republicans that Tillerson's the man for the job, Bill. So this is clearly the first showdown that is likely to happen for one of these spots.
Looking forward to all that. Plus, I mean, Trump had Merry Christmas on the lectern last night in Wisconsin, which was a really nice touch. And we have added our own nice touch, Martha, here. I mean, did you know?
Lovely.
The Christmas trees, the poinsettia.
I love the Christmas spirit.
Take one home with you.
We love having this around.
Indeed, we do. Merry Christmas. Could today be another record breaker? Market set to open in 20 minutes. The Dow looking at what would be a major milestone. 20,000 today, maybe? Maria Bartiromo is here to talk about that live in a moment.
Dance around it, but will it close above it? That's the question. Plus, it's being called a meltdown of humanity. The images, the videos, the voices from Aleppo will break your heart. We will show you what's going on there as the ceasefire travels back.
The civilians are stuck in a very small area that doesn't exceed 2 square kilometers, with no safe zone, no life. Every bomb is a new massacre. Save Aleppo, save humanity.
Of his own party, who have concerns over ties to the Russian leader, Vladimir Putin. But Mr. Trump heaping praise on his pick just last night in Wisconsin.
Very excited about Rex. And you know, Rex is friendly with many of the leaders in the world that we don't get along with. And some people don't like that. They don't want him to be friendly. That's why I'm doing the deal with Rex, because I like what this is all about.
So then, Tennessee Republican Senator Bob Corker chairs the Foreign Relations Committee that will lead the confirmation hearing for Rex Tillerson. And sir, good day to you, and thank you for your time today. I know you were on the short list. Why do you think he went in a different direction?
Look, as I said when President-elect Trump called me on Monday night, Rex Tillerson is someone who's known around the globe. He's run a huge operation. He knows these people personally, and for what President Trump wishes to do, I think Rex Tillerson was his best choice. I really do. So now he's moving to the confirmation hearings, and obviously, Bill, what people are going to want to know is Rex is going to be under the hood, advising the president. It's going to be the president's foreign policy that is carried out. But people are really going to want to press him on what his views are of our relationship to Russia, China, many of the people in the Middle East, and that's what these hearings are about. My guess is he'll be very prepared. I just got a call from someone who's going to be handling his transition, and we'll have those hearings soon.
You said in your answer there, for what Mr. Trump wants to do. What is that, based on your understanding?
Well, look, let's face it, he'll tell you himself, he's a prolific deal maker, and I think people are going to want to understand towards what end. We've had, Bill, 60 or 70 years of policy towards Europe since World War II, where they've been whole, democratic, and free. Putin, obviously, is trying to upset that. I mean, what he's doing in the Baltics, Eastern Ukraine, Crimea, how he's helped destabilize with many of the just efforts that have taken place in Europe and just the refugee crisis itself, which he's helped produce through what's happened in Syria. So people are going to want to understand that. And even though Rex Tillerson, as a businessman, had to do business with these people, and to me that's very understandable. Of course he did. And the fact that he knows these people, to me, is certainly a plus. But I'm going to want to know, everyone else on the committee is going to want to understand, so what will he be advising the president as it relates to those relationships and the norms that we've had in place to keep us as an alliance in a very strong position? Okay,
you've said a lot in your answer there, and being friendly does not necessarily dictate a friendship. As twisted as that statement may sound, but you've had your own colleagues.
That's right.
John McCain, Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio especially, they've already expressed mixed feelings. Will Rex Tillerson be confirmed?
So I'm going to bet at the end of the day, again, I've had conversations with him through the years, Bill. This guy's a guy that exudes confidence, calm, strength, leadership. I assume, unless he's going to totally attempt to reorder the world as it relates to our relationships, that he will be. But again, it's not going to be your normal pro forma deal. The last two secretaries of state were widely known relative to their views. Rex Tillerson, again, highly respected, comes of this, though, as a clean slate where no one really understands what those views are. People are going to want to know. Look, Putin has not been a friend to the United States. Putin has not been a friend to freedom and democracy and Western values and competition. That's just not who he is, and people are going to want to know. And it's accelerated or amplified by the fact that President-elect Trump has said some things relative to Russia that, let's face it, is very different than where we've been, and that alone has sort of amplified people's concerns about Secretary of State Tillerson. But my guess is, at the end of the day, he is confirmed.
Given are there concerns that you have then?
Look,
that could be a
I
deep
began,
hole, sir, and I think you understand that.
Yeah. So, Bill, I began this with knowledge that I have tremendous respect for this person. So I began there. He's competent. He's done big things. He's been at the same place for 43 years. He's a great American. Okay, he is. So I began there. But I do want to probe these things, and I got to believe if Gates and Condoleezza Rice and Dick Cheney and Stephen Hadley and Jim Baker, all people that I respect, I got to believe if they're behind him, they know that his view of the world is similar to theirs, and so there's some alignments here. But again, I go into this as chairman, it's going to be a neutral application of the process, and I've got some questions that I'd like to have answered. Everyone else does too. My guess is he will perform well.
Okay, last question. You will hold hearings on Russia and so-called ties to our past election. Do you believe Moscow tipped the election in Donald Trump's favor?
I have no way of knowing, and that's why we're going to have these briefings and hearings and maybe even go a lot deeper. There's no question that it appears they have hacked, Bill. Sophisticated countries do things to gather intelligence. I mean, it used to be always done by human beings, human intelligence. We call that HUMINT. But there are now other ways of gathering intelligence, and countries do this around the world. And so, should we have our hair on fire that hacking took place? No. I mean, that's what happens. But then the question is, I mean, we should protect against it, don't get me wrong. As I said on another program, Bill, every time I make a phone call, I assume that somebody from another country is trying to listen in on that. But what was it they were attempting to do? Anytime that someone like Putin, an autocrat, can really cause Americans to have this discussion, or other countries, as to the integrity of the electoral process, he's winning. He's winning. If he can discredit the integrity of what we do here in the voting process and electing folks, he is winning. And so we do need to get to the bottom of it and understand what it was he was attempting to do. The DNI has one view, the CIA has a different view, the FBI has a different view, and so we as policymakers need to understand what exactly has occurred here.
Senator, thank you for your time. Bob Corker out of Tennessee.
Thank you, Bill.
In Tennessee. Thank you. 21 past,
Thank
Martha.
you.
A lot there. All right. So President-elect Trump pledged to stop companies from sending jobs overseas. Now a major tech company with a big announcement today that is bringing workers back home. We'll tell you who that is. Plus, he was welcomed into our home as the all-American dad. Family and friends now remembering Alan Thicke after his shocking death at just 69 years old yesterday. We'll be right back. So IBM pledging to hire 25,000 U.S. workers over the next 4 years. The CEO making that announcement ahead of today's tech summit at Trump Tower, where she will be as part of the group there. The company's been trading higher on the stock market, helping propel the Dow, because it's one of the Dow 30, up towards 20,000. Let's bring in Maria Bartiromo, Fox Business Network's global markets editor, the anchor of Mornings with Maria on FBN and Sunday Morning Futures here on the Fox News channel. Busy lady. Good to see you, Maria.
Good morning to you.
Thank you. What an extraordinary run. 20,000, is that within, I mean, certainly it's within reach. Is it sustainable, I guess, is the question.
You know, we'll see what happens on inauguration. I mean, a lot of market watchers have been saying, look, you want to buy this market until at least Donald Trump gets in there. But right now it's all on this expectation that earnings are going to get a real boost as a result of these policies that he's putting in place, rolling back regulations and lowering taxes. I remember when you and I both were on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange and we were celebrating 10,000. And here we are talking about Dow 20,000. Does 20,000 mean anything? Not really. It's just a round number. But at the same time, it creates an excitement and it creates an acknowledgement that this is a fundamental rally. This is not about noise. This is not about short selling or, you know, sort of volume. This is about the fact that things are getting better and they are expected to get better. I told you earlier when we were talking the other day that one of the analysts that I spoke with said that he's expecting earnings to be up 20% as a result of a corporate tax rate that's pulled down to 15%.
Yeah. What's good for companies is not always good for jobs. We see an intense amount of automation, robotics going into a lot of these earnings numbers. But Ginny Rometty from IBM has said 25,000 more jobs. She's part of the advisory committee to Donald Trump on jobs, and they're all going to talk technology today, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's really interesting that when, with a little effort and with the messaging that Donald Trump has been putting out there, everybody gets into line. And so here you have Ginny Rometty going to Trump Tower today, but before she gets there, she announces she's going to create 25,000 jobs. But I think it's really important.
She doesn't want to get the squeeze after she gets in the door. She wants to put the offer right out on the table, right?
But you make the right point, because it's really the skill sets that are out there. People have job openings, but they can't find the people that actually have the skill sets required to fill those jobs. So she's encouraging Donald Trump to do more training when it comes to technology. That probably will come up today.
So initially the tech stocks sold off after Trump was elected. There was a bit of feeling that he wasn't as favorable to that group, maybe more so to hardcore manufacturing and the Rust Belt and all of that. So how do you think it's going to go with these folks today?
Well, particularly since they were not favorable to him, right?
Yeah.
The entire election, they were clearly in Hillary Clinton's camp, and he knows that. A guy
Writing
like
big checks.
Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, the Washington Post said they were going to put 20 reporters on Donald Trump because they owed it to readers, and they didn't put anybody extra on, any reporters on Hillary Clinton. So I think, yes, the tech stocks traded down on this expectation, but also because they were not expected to get the favorable policies that they've been getting under President Obama. I want to be a fly on the wall in that meeting today. They definitely want H-1B visas. They want to have cheap labor. Come on. They want to hire people from overseas, give them those jobs, and pay them less than they would. Yeah. That's not going to fly with Donald Trump. If you can get some of these tech companies manufacturing in this country that now do it overseas, like Apple, for example, that would be huge. And one of the things that we see is everybody who goes in there seems to come out saying, oh, what a great guy. He's got great plans. So he's a very charming ability to win people over. We'll see how long it lasts. That's always a question. But Maria, thank you very much. Right, good stuff. Good to see you.
So then from a local campus to you at home, a professor at a major school now banning the words illegal immigrant. So what, you ask, is behind all of that? And the choice for Secretary of State getting a mix of praise and caution from Congress. You just heard from Senator Bob Corker a moment ago. Is there a showdown in the offing? And what does Trump team think about all this? Jason Miller is on deck live next after this.
Thank you so much, Maria.
I believe we're in the process of putting together one of the great cabinets, certainly a cabinet with the highest IQ that anybody has ever. I mean, these are seriously great people.
So Nancy Pelosi says Mr. Trump's pick for Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, is too cozy with Vladimir Putin, and that should automatically be a disqualifier for the job. This is just a preview of what we're going to get in this confirmation process that lies ahead. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee will hold the confirmation hearing, as you know. The chairman, Bob Corker, was just with us moments ago. Here's what he said about Tillerson's hearing.
Putin has not been a friend to the United States. Putin has not been a friend to freedom and democracy and Western values and competition. I mean, that's just not who he is, and people are going to want to know. And it's accelerated or amplified by the fact that President-elect Trump has said some things relative to Russia that, let's face it, is very different than where we've been. And that alone has sort of amplified people's concerns.
So what does the Trump team have to say about this? Jason Miller is the communications director for the Trump transition team. Jason, good to see you this morning.
Martha, good morning.
So the bottom line question for Rex Tillerson is, does he believe that Russia is our friend or our enemy?
Well, I think what he believes is that we don't have to come in on day one and start saying countries are our enemy, especially if there are ways that we can work together, whether it's defeating radical Islamic terrorism or other things. But I think what folks are going to find about Rex Tillerson, and I've had the opportunity to speak with him at length and get to know him a little bit, this guy is a world-class negotiator. He has gone in and negotiated some of the toughest deals. He has relationships, whether it be with finance ministers or business leaders all around the world. He's worked in almost every theater of this entire planet. And when the president-elect met with them, it was blown away in their initial meeting. The president-elect thought that Mr. Tillerson was one of the most impressive people that he had met through this entire process. I think he realized we need someone who can advocate for us on the world stage, and Rex Tillerson is that person.
Got it. When you think about the other people that he talked to, though, Bob Corker included, and also Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney said that Russia is the biggest threat to world peace and to our country. And Bob Corker has said similar things. He said in that soundbite that he questions where Mr. Trump comes down on Russia. So the basic fundamental question is, does the Trump administration believe that Vladimir Putin is a man of violence who has been behind the slaughtering of hundreds of thousands of people in Syria, that he has a relationship with Iran that's questionable? Is that in line with what the Trump administration will believe?
Well, I think you're, respectfully speaking, I think you're looking at it through the wrong lens. I think what we should be looking at is where are there ways where we can actually work with other countries to achieve common goals. Now, does this mean that Russia is a great ally? Not saying that. Does it mean that they're an enemy from day one? We don't need to walk in on day one and immediately start crossing off countries and say they're enemies, especially when we talk about the Middle East.
But you have to acknowledge the acts that have taken place as a starting point. The thing I'm bringing are McCain. It's what you guys are going to hear at the Senate confirmation hearing from Graham, from Rubio, from McCain in the larger process when it gets to the full Senate vote, when it gets through committee. So these are the questions that he's going to have to answer.
They are, and what we'll see is that Rex Tillerson is actually someone who has stood up to Vladimir Putin and said no. He's someone who stood up to Hugo Chavez.
How did he do that?
Well, in the process of negotiations that they've gone through, specific deals, is he was representing ExxonMobil, and now obviously Mr. Tillerson will be representing American citizens. But here's someone who can come away with the bottom line of how do we get good results for our country. And Rex Tillerson is someone who's done that. In fact, if you ask people around the world, what's the reputation of Rex Tillerson? What do people know him for? Is that he's a tough negotiator. I think this is one of the things that the president-elect was really attracted to about Rex Tillerson, is that he can go and do that in a league that
I think that's understood. I mean, he's obviously someone who has a lot of respect out there. And when you have Condoleezza Rice and Bob Gates and people of that ilk believing in him, and people, those are people who know a lot about Russia. But I think the question, in this hearing process is going to be, everyone understands that as a CEO, you have completely different responsibilities, and people want to see those deals get done. But as a representative of the United States, you want to have a good feel for whether or not he believes that at his root, Putin is somebody who we should or can possibly deal with, somebody who has been very close to Assad, someone who has been very close to Iran. So is that somebody we can negotiate or deal with?
Well, again, the thing that I would say is that the number one thing we need our Secretary of State doing is advocating for the President-elect's America First foreign policy. And Mr. Trump won with an overwhelming number of electoral delegates, biggest number for Republicans since 1988. And people are buying into this America First foreign policy. And are we going to send out representatives out on this world stage?
But the question will be, does America First include an alliance with Russia, something that maybe Romney and Corker, when they sat down in those same meetings, were not really willing to
I think we need to look,
go along with?
I think we need to look at different ways where we can work with them. And when we talk about defeating ISIS, if there are countries that are acting in good faith that want to stand with us to defeat ISIS, we should be looking for ways to go and do that. I think that's absolutely silly to go and cross that off the table. Now, are we going to agree on everything? Absolutely not. And we're going to stand up and we're going to be firm. And I think we've seen that from the president-elect, and we've seen it from some of his picks, people like Rex Tillerson. But to go and just cross people off and say that we can't work with them to defeat someone like ISIS, and we talk about the overall geopolitical stability of a region like the Middle East, we're not in this by ourselves. There are a lot of other players. And if we can't sit down and have a conversation, then we're not going to go anywhere
people
past.
People point to Reagan and Gorbachev and what they were able to accomplish, and then some might say Gorbachev and Putin, very, very different people. So we will see. And I think he obviously needs to have his moment in front of everyone, because America doesn't know Rex Tillerson, and you guys have talked to him, and so he's going to get his chance to, be presented on the world stage, and people will hear from him himself, and that is the very important part of this process.
He's a very impressive person, someone who's run one of the world's largest companies, over 70,000 employees. He's literally worked in every region of the world. So we talk about Southeast Asia and South America, understands the Middle East and security issues. Just a very impressive person. I think people are going to be really impressed when they start to really get to know Rex Tillerson.
I think everybody looks forward to that opportunity. Thank you very much, Jason.
Thanks, Martha.
Good to have you with us today.
What you did tonight took real courage, Mike. I admire you. Thanks. You sleep on it. Good night, Dan. Good night, Mike. Thanks, Dan.
A lot of us waking up today to that sad news, a legacy of love and laughter for Alan Thicke. The veteran actor died yesterday at the age of 69, apparently a heart attack. His TV career spanned 5 decades, including stints as a writer and composer and even a late-night host. But he was best known, of course, for playing the dad on the 1980s sitcom Growing Pains. Thicke's co-star, Kirk Cameron, writing on Instagram the following, quote, "I spent Monday through Friday for 7 important years with Alan Thicke as my TV dad. I'm shocked and truly heartbroken today at the news of his death. Alan was a generous, kind, and loving man." Meanwhile, actress Joanna Kearns, who played his wife, tweeting, "I loved Alan. He was one of the smartest and funniest men I've ever known. We shared a life-changing success and friendship." Thicke is survived by his 3 sons and wife Tanya, his son Carter tweeting this: "The world's saying goodbye to actor Alan Thicke, gone too soon at the age of 89 years old."
69 years old.
69. Very, very talented, who touched a lot of lives here and about everywhere. Best to him and his
Young. What a
family.
shock.
and
He was
those leaves
playing
behind.
basketball with his 19-year-old son and had a heart attack, and he is so beloved. And our hearts go out to him and to his family as well. All right, so in the meantime, we will talk about the fact that Democrats are sounding the alarm over the alleged Russian interference in the presidential election. Harry Reid saying that it's just as bad as 9/11. Really? We're going to talk about that. Fair Balanced Debate coming up when we come right back.
The top Democrat in the Senate now putting Russia's alleged interference in the election in a category of its own. Harry Reid compares it to the worst terrorist attack in our nation's history. He said this: "I think this is as big a deal as Watergate, as 9/11. I think they should have a 9/11 type commission. I think it's a step in the right direction. This is a scandal that's been uncovered." Wow. What does he know? Brad Blakeman, former Deputy Assistant President George W. Bush, Jessica Tarloff, Democratic pollster and strategist, senior political analyst for Schoen Consulting. Good day to both of you.
Good morning.
Woo, huh? 9/11,
spicy.
Watergate. I don't know. What else do you want to put in that category? Pearl Harbor. I mean, take your pick on the hyperbole.
Look, it's a good thing that Harry Reid is old news. He's not going to be in Washington. He's not going to be governing. And I think this is another attempt by Democrats to delegitimize the fair and free election of Donald Trump. The Russians were not the cause of Donald Trump being elected. It was the incompetence of Hillary Clinton.
Jessica, you want to take that on?
Okay, well, there's a lot there to unpack. I mean, first of all, I'd like to say I don't like...
Just start with Harry Reid. I mean, do you believe that this is as bad as 9/11 before we've even seen any evidence?
9/11 isn't a category all its own. The hyperbole hurts our cause. I disagree with you insofar as I don't think this is the Democrats doing that. Harry Reid is the only person out there saying something like that. If you listen to Elijah Cummings talking about it yesterday, Adam Schiff, these are people who want an investigation, which frankly is bipartisan at this point, into what the Russians are doing if they're in our systems. Not because I think the election outcome is going to change. It is not. But we need to know if they were in some way tampering, and we need to know how much information of ours they have, just like we need to know about China and North Korea. A lot of people want our stuff.
Perhaps I may rewind and remind all of this from 2 months ago. The Commander-in-Chief said the following:
"There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections. And so I'd advise Mr. Trump to stop whining and go try to make his case to get votes."
Funny how things...
Yeah, what a difference an election makes. But one thing is for sure, we have a cyber problem in America. We are not as diligent as we should be. As a matter of fact, the experts have told us that cyber attacks in America are more threatening now than a nuclear attack, and we're not doing the kind of job we should be doing, but we shouldn't be using this election as an excuse.
So what's the proper way to manage that, Brad?
What we need to do is we need, in the confirmation hearings of our defense officials and our intel officials, is pin them down on what Donald Trump's position is going to be and policy on cybersecurity. That is the ultimate threat to America, whether it comes from Russia or anybody else. But let's not use this election as an excuse, because that's not the
Well, this
real root
election,
of our problems in America. It's our national grid. It's our national defense.
I don't disagree with Brad, and we were talking in the green room about Leon Panetta's speech that he gave at the Intrepid about 4 years ago, where he said that the next warfare front is going to be cyber, and our grid could go, anything could happen. We were talking about what if all the heating in America suddenly goes out during the winter? You're just going, I mean, we have no capability to fix something like that. But in terms of what's going on in the election, and this is not something that is just Democrats who are concerned about. You have John McCain, you have Lindsey Graham out there, Richard Burr. I mean, there are going to be hearings in both the House and the Senate about this. So you can't accept the results of the election and still be concerned about this and be talking about the election as a way that the Russians may have infiltrated our systems. We know that that's possible, and we need to be concerned also about Donald Trump's attitude towards the Russians, as well as Rex Tillerson.
How much of this, however, is trying to make this whole thing look like it's not legitimate?
The election, the mandate question.
Many Republicans are already. You can't use this as a dog whistle.
That's right.
To make it seem as if our democracy is falling apart because of it.
I think that it's very dangerous. I mean, Hillary Clinton lost because of 80,000 votes in 3 key states. There were mistakes that were made that didn't have to do with the Russians. Spend your time in Michigan, not in Arizona. You win that way if you're a Democrat. So I think that that's what we should be focusing on, and refurbishing the party and looking ahead to 2018 and 2020. I think that we have great prospects at winning back a lot of seats.
The irony on this is that Podesta's pushing it. He was the one who hacked. He's the one who fell for this phishing expedition.
Well,